Hello, my name is Belinda Blevins-Knabe. I am the chair of the IRB, and I am here today to go over with you our informed consent template. I'll be joined in this presentation by Umphers, who is our peer educator for the IRB. Before we start, I wanted to cover a few general topics. The first is that informed consent is a process. And so for any study, you need to be available to participants to answer questions and to address any concerns that they have. And for a complex or more lengthy study, you may need to remind participants that their participation is voluntary and see if they still want to continue, and of course, be available to them for questions. Second thing is that it's really best not to recycle your informed consent forms across studies. And the reason for this is that each study is different and the informed consent needs to match the study. And so when you recycle forms, often there's a mismatch and it leads to confusion. So I'll ask you to be mindful and aware of what's in your informed consent form and make sure that it does match the particular project that's described in the protocol. All right, so now what we're going to do is show you the template and walk you through it. Okay, so as we move to the template, one of the things you'll see is that the template starts with 4 pages of instructions. And these instructions are important for you to remember to read because they have information that applies to all projects, but also they have specific information that applies to particular projects. So they include both general and specific things that you may need to be aware of when you're writing your informed consent. Prior to submitting your informed consent, please delete these 4 pages of instructions so they don't belong in your submission. You'll note as well that the informed consent template itself has instructions in red, so you need to delete those prior to submitting the form. Okay, so that brings us then to the actual informed consent template, which starts with an introduction section. And the introduction section should contain a brief description of the research. The research topic needs to be described with enough specificity that it's clear what the topic is. If it's too vague, that doesn't really help the participant in deciding whether or not this study is for them. But you don't have to be so specific that you give away your hypothesis. Stay away too from technical jargon that's really hard for participants to understand. If there are special participation requirements, include them here. So for example, if you're only recruiting those who've lived in Little Rock for 5 years, say it early on so that participants know whether really they will qualify for this study or whether they should exit now. The next thing in the informed consent template is called important information about this study, which is also referred to as a key information section. And this key information section is required in certain situations. So some of these include federal grants, complex studies, studies that have vulnerable populations, instances in which the consent form is longer than 2 double-spaced pages, or other cases in which the IRB determines that it's really helpful to participants to have this information early. So the point of the key information section is to give participants a brief synopsis to allow them to decide whether or not they might want to participate. And we've given you an outline here to help you write this key information section. It is the case that you'll address some of these issues in more detail later on in the informed consent. And then we come to the what is this study about and why are we doing it section. And this is a place to provide information about why this research is important. You need to build an honest case for why someone might want to participate. So be specific enough about the topic that the participant can understand what the topic is. For example, if you say this is a study about recreational activities, that's pretty general, and you probably need to give examples. Don't leave out topics that are sensitive. So if you're going to be asking about recreational use of drugs, you need to say that. That could very well influence whether someone wants to participate in the study. Next thing is to talk about what's involved. So basically here we're talking about what the participants will be doing in the study. Again, be specific. Are they going to answer survey questions? Are they going to run in place while you measure their heart rate? Are they participating in an interview? Are you audio recording them, video recording them? Is the data collection online? Is it in person? All of these things matter in terms of helping a person understand or make a decision about whether they want to participate. And telling them how much time it takes is also important in helping them make this decision. Then we come to the risk section. And often the studies that we get are minimal risk studies. But this does not mean that the study is no risk. Even if a study is minimal risk, there is often some risk. So you should list the reasonable risks. For example, if the questions might make a participant uncomfortable, you can say that. You can also remind participants here that they can address that discomfort by skipping questions, or if you have other strategies, you can list them here. Now, we do have studies that are greater than minimal risk, and if yours fits that, then you do need to say that. So you do need to cover the risks and what can be done to mitigate those risks, and state whether there's any compensation or medical treatment available if there's an injury. Section on benefits has to cover direct or indirect benefits, or both. So direct benefits are ones that go right to the participant. Indirect benefits are those that go to other people, so society at large, maybe you're building a bigger knowledge base, and those types of things. And studies have to have some type of benefit to be approved. It can be direct, it can be indirect, it can be both. When you write your statements about what you can expect from the research, use the word may, since you don't know before you do the study that you're actually going to find what you're predicting you will find. So you don't know that those benefits will actually happen. Note too that benefits are not compensation. Compensation is given to a participant for their time and effort or to reimburse expenses. So that is different from the types of benefits that we're talking about here. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to Ida Umphers, who will cover the other parts of the template.
The next section in the template is called Alternative Procedures. This is the section where you describe any alternative procedures in your study. If students can earn extra credit by participating in the research, there must be an option for them to earn the same amount of extra credit without participating in the research. The alternative way to earn the extra credit cannot require more time, effort, or risk than participating in the research, and that should all be described in this section. The next section on confidentiality and data security is one of the longest sections in the template. And the first thing that needs to be said in this section is identifiable data does not just mean names. Depending on your sample size, the diversity of your sample, and so on, participants may be identifiable based on their age, race, sex, job status or title, a quotation, or a video or an audio clip that you use, among other things. Please be sure to read all of this section carefully In this video, we're just going to cover some of the highlights. The first thing is, do not promise participants anonymity. With today's technology, the most that you can promise is confidentiality, and that the researchers will make every effort to keep the participants' data secure. Next, data should be password protected and encrypted when being stored on any device or the cloud and when being uploaded or downloaded. Be sure to inform the participants of everyone who will see the raw data. If the data is being collected for some third party, indicate whether that entity will get the raw data or only a summary of the findings. Explain any use of pseudonyms or codes to be used in lieu of participants' names, and how those names and pseudonyms or codes will be stored separately. Inform participants if any quotes or video clips are to be part of the published research, and warn them that this may identify them. The next section on audio-video recording is where you should tell participants if any recordings are to be made, and there should be check boxes on the consent form for participants to check to agree to all forms of recording you intend to use. There should also be an explanation of what alternatives, if any, exist for participants who do not want to be recorded. In the section on future use of identifiable data or specimens collected in this research, this is where you inform participants whether or not their data or specimens will be used in future research without asking for additional consent from them. There are two possible statements to choose from in this section. Those you see at the beginning, separated by the red "or," and one of them should appear on your consent form. As a reminder to PIs, this does not mean that any future research does not require IRB approval. It does. The section on compensation leads us back to a brief mention of the previous section on benefits. Compensation and benefits are not the same thing. As mentioned previously, benefits are good things that may happen to the participants as a result of taking part in the research itself. Compensation is a way to thank or reimburse participants for the time and effort they have expended in participating in the research. Compensation can be financial, particularly if there is travel or parking involved in getting to the research site, or the participants will have had to take time off work, and so on. It can also include such things as lunch for participants, a lottery for prizes, and so on. Compensation cannot be dependent on completing 100% of the research project or answering 100% of the questions. It must be prorated based on how much the participant actually does, and explanations of the prorated amounts and their requirements must be explained in the consent form. Participant rights appear in the Your Rights as a Participant section. As stated at the beginning of this video, participation and continued participation must always be strictly voluntary, and participation and consent to participate is a process that continues throughout the research itself. Participants must be told that they can ask questions, and the PI should be prepared to answer those questions. Participants should be told that they can refuse to participate, skip questions, or stop participating at any time, and what will happen to any data already collected if they skip questions or stop their participation. If there is an institution, organization, or any service entity involved with the research, the participants need to be informed that no services they receive from this entity are dependent on their participation in the research. Sorry about that. The next section indicates IRB approval and contacts for questions or problems. There is a standard statement indicating IRB approval that should appear on the consent form, along with contact information for the Office of Research Compliance, either by phone or at irb@ualr.edu. At the end of the form, we have a section where you put any check boxes or click boxes as described in the sections above, where participants confirm their age, consent to participate, consent to recordings, consent to the use of audio video clips or quotations, and those should appear separately, not just as one blanket consent on the consent form. Thank you for watching our video on informed consent. If you have any questions, you can always contact the IRB via email or phone.